But my whole problem with these games is it to me it feels like it's more about the financial aspect instead of an actual experience, and there's less of gameplay and more of this whole like schemy marketing thing. It's just really odd whenever I think about it, and that's what these games have is they have these forms of conversions, these things that they say it's not gambling, but to someone like me, it looks that's what it looks like. I mean, I'm pretty sure gambling is something entirely different, but you're turning your money into the form of currency for the game. From what I've seen, it seems very predatory the way uh, games go about it. Like I think a game on my mind would be, in this case, we're talking about Gacha Games here. It would be like a game like Genshin Impact, or I would say Zenless Zero. I think it's a great game, gameplay wise. There's a lot of tech in the game to learn and understand with each character, but I've had a couple of friends come to me and tell me that the game does feel like it's kind of impossible to get a character whenever the update comes out, and that it it just seems very grindy instead of being very fun in terms of the gameplay, and that's kind of where I'm at in terms of this whole gotcha stuff. Is like it's based on what I'm saying, it's like a lottery system. I think a game that I do like a lot would be Wuthering Waves in terms of the gameplay. It's just the overall way the game. It's not perfect, obviously, but the way the game has, I guess, promoted itself, has designed itself. It's in such a good state, I would say. And the experience I had with, I think day one Genshin was fun, but I think over time I got tired of the resources and all that stuff. I just got really tired. The lack of skip button, things like that should have been in the game at launch. Just very, these are things that were very annoying to me. It began to feel like I'm spending more time playing Genshin Impact. And so someone like me would be, I guess I was very just disinterested with the game at that point. I was like, hey, you know what? I'll just play Wuthering Waves instead. And that's kind of where I decided to switch. And I think that's when I started to understand the power that the consumer has when the consumer understands what they want, which is gameplay or things that they may like within the gameplay. This is something that is able to sell. This is something that is able to keep the players around. Now, I'm not saying Genshin Impact is a bad game at all or anything like that, but I have clear issues with the game, and I think it's the monetization of the things that it has, and it's just very predatory, and it doesn't help because of the banners and the things like that, and the power creep that are in there. I think the power creep is another problem within itself with these games, but that kind of issue reminds me of this whole thing where not everything lasts forever, which is something where at some point, regardless of any game, if it's not balanced well or anything like that, the game will at some point reach the power creep stage where characters become so strong, or at some point there's a character at the very top of the tiers spectrum. So that's not good. And when the patches don't make certain characters good or viable, that's even worse, right? So that's something that I've seen. I'm not sure of the other games that are there within this space, but these are the ones that I play. I'm sure there's more of them, but I've seen the typical cool Gacha games where it's very obvious what they're trying to do. I like certain games, but my problem with, for example, my problem with a game like Nikkei, right, is I think it's a great game in terms of the gameplay. Like, seriously though, gameplay is pretty fun and pretty addictive. I find myself oftentimes really getting absorbed within the gameplay's formula. It has an XP system. It's very similar, I'd say, to the experience of keeping track of your Pokemon in like Pokemon Red, where you just checking the levels, making sure the stats are right, seeing the characters' moves or etc., making sure that they're on par with each other, and making sure that the team synergy really works when it comes to battles or boss battles. Like I think that's the core of this game, and that's why I think I just can't stop playing it. It's just so much fun, and that's I think the core of this game, and I think that's the core of a lot of these games is it's that team synergy, it's the comp, right? It's the tech, like who is viable, and it's like what is viable, like what matters in this game. And I think that is the core of this game, and I think that's like it's fun. Pretty cool stuff when a game is all about the action. And the game has a story. I think the story is I'm not really big on this, but I think it's good. I would say it's good. I think over time I began to get tired of the game. It started to feel like more, it might be a hot take, but I do feel like the game monetization thing, but maybe that's their audience that they're going for, so it's not really a big deal. But me personally, I don't want to feel like a game wants my money. I want to feel like a game has gameplay, and I think this game has gameplay. Now, I don't know if the game has any marketing things. I think my whole thing is just a battle pass system. I don't like any kind of battle pass system. If they're not like rivals where they just you buy them once, they'll stay forever. If it's not like that, I don't want it. So if it's time locked, all battle passes are done. And my whole thing is just the gameplay and just what does a game do at its core. And I think Nikke has a gameplay aspect. It has a story aspect. It has something interesting, which is the team building and the comps that are possible. These are very cool things to have in a game. And it's what sets characters apart from each other. Now, there are some characters that have multiple versions of themselves, right? I don't really have an issue with that because sometimes a character could be just bad in design, and they want to fix that by making another version of that character. So that's pretty cool. And the game's all right? If I were to rate the game, I'd probably say a 7 out of 10. It's all right. Some people like it. I think it's just an all right game. I think it's fun though. I think it is fun, but I personally don't like to feel like a wallet when I'm playing a game. I want to feel like I'm able to actually play and have fun, things like that. And that is like for me, like the core of a game. Like that is a video game. I hate that now these free play games have now become like this whole monetary battle. It's like, it's not supposed to be like that, It's supposed to be this experience that is fun and obviously free to play. And obviously if you want to spend money on it, that should be an option, but it's as if the gameplay aspect is just removed from the game. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think the game is fine though, because it has gameplay, it has things that I think that keep people in it and people spending it. So I think that's great. Now there were other gacha games I talked about, like KF All Stars. I'm pretty sure that's like down by now. There's a lot of different games that were around. I remember a game that I played was like Illusion Connect. That was a game that was around. I think that game is down by now. Man, that's another thing about these games as well. They kind of die fast too. It's kind of crazy. And I think that's because they're having this, like I said, monetary battle, right? They're trying to see, can we make this? Can we make money, right? And I don't think it's really working out very well. But I think Illusions Connect was a game that it was so interesting with its gameplay. It was more of a tactics game where it was very focused on like building a team, but you had to build it, and then you had to same thing with Nikke, so you build it and then you have to choose different things to equip to the characters or whatever. and to get them strong enough to take on various missions or whatever. It's just very cool stuff, and just like Nikkei, it has costumes of characters and things like that, but that doesn't really matter since the game is down. But again, I also think about is Punishing Grey Raven. I think it's a great game. I think the action is pretty cool, but like I said, I'm not really a fan of passes or banners or anything like that. Um, it's the core of a gacha game, pretty much, but it's never really been something that interests me because I'm here to play. It's about gameplay for me. It's cool to pull a 5 star or 6 star, but I genuinely think that it should not have to cost to acquire a character. Like, that is just crazy. But some people want to get the quickest way, and that's just what they do. I mean, to pay like actual physical, like to pay real world money for a free to play game is something that generally confuses me. Like, unless the game is good, like the games I mentioned prior, then I could completely understand. But I don't know. Like, I think personally, to me, that's kind of crazy to just ignore my financial responsibilities and just throw money away to a corporate company for a virtual character, which doesn't matter to the real world. So there's no point in that. But cool, I guess. And then it's like, what happens when the game goes out of service? Like, do you get your money back, or like, what happens? Because I think it's just very weird. And I would say, like, at max, like I would say $10 to $5. Like, I would, like, that's what I would say. But that's unless like the game is legitimately like actually good. Then yeah, sure, I'll spend some money in a game, maybe like $10 to $15, maybe, just maybe, right? But I start off small with small numbers, and gradually maybe I'll increase. But to spend money in a game is like, I feel like a game has to earn that with gameplay and the importance of a battle system. And I think, for example, a game like Honkai Impact, I would say it had its, I would say, prime years from 2015 to 20, I would say, to 2018, right? Those are the times where I was playing, and I still play to this day. But I think the value in the updates has really changed, and the game's scope, I think, has changed a lot. So I feel about spending money in the game now, but at that point in time, I think it was warranted. It made complete sense. But I think right now, I don't know. I'm a bit split on it, but there are a lot of reasons why a person may spend money in a video game. My reasons are, I want to spend money in this game to help the company, or something like that. I want to spend money in a game because I like a game. Sure. I think that's like the base reason, right? It's like the game's super good, so we spend money in it. The game's super good, so we spend money in it. All right, good reason. And then it gets to where I'm going to continuously buy every single character's costume in a game and make myself flat broke. And then that's the point where, because I see that a lot, where people oftentimes buy these outrageous costumes in these games for who knows how many, who knows how much, right? Because these things are something, and they don't look at what the costume is, what the costume gives, or anything like that. And another practice I've seen with these costumes as well is these companies will not let you try the costume or allow you to see what the costume has. So let's say special sound effects or anything of the sort. Um, they just won't let you see that, and it's because I think it exposes the clear issue, which is the costume has no value, right? Like, if the costume doesn't change anything, then what's the value of the costume? At best, it's probably like a $5 costume. If it changes nothing, at best, it's like a $5 costume. So that's like the thing I was saying, where there's a lot of strange practices that are in play, and I think consumers need to be aware of their abilities and their powers and be able to fight against these businesses as they clearly are fighting for the consumer's pocket, right? So that's like what these companies do, and I think it's great to see people call out these companies and really talk about the practices that are at play. Now, me personally, I would usually like spend like I would start small with the lowest tier. Let's say I want to get the best value, right? So usually I would get like the smallest thing. And then let's say if I really want or really like this character or something like that, and the costume is really good for the character, then maybe I'll just buy a costume specifically for that character. And that's where I understand the opinions from a lot of people who buy costumes in general. Is that hey, I'm gonna buy this for this character, and that's it. No more purchases in the game, right? That's normal speak, right? And then it gets to where the drastic difference is where they're like, okay, not the same person, but someone else would say, hey, I'm gonna buy every single costume in this game and make myself broke. That's my issue, because that's a common running theme with these games, is where these guys are throwing loads and loads of money into these games, and then when the game goes out of service, what happens to the game, right? That's my issue. So it's more of a responsibility aspect, but I can't really fault them, as these companies are really pushing, hey, buy our costumes, right? They're really pushing that. And so these guys are like, hey, if I don't buy this, I'll miss out or something. So that's like the whole thing with that. And it's personally, it's very shady, and I don't like a single second of it. So I'm very selective over the costumes that I would ever purchase in a game, because I try to make sure that the costume that I'm paying for is true value, right? It's like, okay, if I'm paying $20 for this, what do you have that I'm paying for? Like, what am I paying for that warrants this amount of money? And I've seen the opinion that um, they call you broke for wanting to get, I guess, like a bang for your buck, right? Trying to make sure that you get the value of what you're paying for. And I'm just like, that's ridiculous, right? It's like we want value for what we're paying for. We're not about to just pay for slop. And, that's my problem. And how does the consumer, someone like me, know that that my opinion is in, like, that I'm being thought about when I'm purchasing this thing? How do I know that if things aren't being put in place in the game? Whether it's, like, I think Wuthering Waves has a warning in the store, right? How do I know that, right? Does the game warn me about excessive spending, right? What does it have that prevents fraud, right? Like, what does it do? And these are the questions that I often have with these games, is because these are, like, to me, this is very important, because if people don't know, I think a lot of people know in their heads that they shouldn't do something, but I feel as though it would mean a lot if the company just said, hey, don't do that, right? Or hey, maybe you shouldn't do this. Kind of like a heads up before you do something, because it can help, and it can probably save a lot of lives, right? And that's my thing, because a lot of these games don't have that, and I think it's just very non-consumer friendly, as people need to know what their rights are, and if a company tells them what their rights are, and it's right there, I think that's great. So that's probably why that game is doing really well, because of the things that the game implements that are so friendly to the consumer. It's like the perfect environment, right? And I feel the same way about Zenozone Zero, although the game is a little bit different in terms of I guess the consumer friendly thing. it's less about the store and it's more about the value you get out of the game. Um, I know they're adding costumes and things like that. This is like a updated recording here, but I know they're adding costumes and things like that, which is great. As I do think the game has a lot of potential, but there's a lot that needs to be done to really see this game uh, really reach that. But I think so far the game is fun. I have a lot of fun putting together teams, and it's really something. I think I have a team with with like Ben and the arrow guy. I think his name is like Muramasa or something like that. And then I have Miyabi on like the same team, and together these three are unstoppable, right? So there's a lot of fun, and I think that's the core of a game is the fun, right? It's like, oh, you don't need to pay to get a character in a game. I didn't even have to pay to get Miyabi. I just got her. So it's just like, just play the game or something, and you don't have to spend any money to really get a character in the game, right? And even the low tier characters are viable, right? Characters like Billy may not be the best in the game, right? I don't know where his standing is, but may not be the best in the game, but he's still good, right? These characters are still good. They may not be the best, but they can still do a lot if you give them the chance. And I think that's like really what's important with these games. And that's my problem with games like Genshin, where there are characters that can outclass characters because they have this skill and this skill slot, right? I think the core thing about these games as well is the design, right? It's like each character has an elemental ability and then the surge. And then some surge abilities can act as like support or grant healing or whatever, right? And then some elemental abilities can grant healing or deal attacks or whatever. And then when you give a character the ability to teleport or do any crazy things like that with a skill slot, they're going to outshine every other character in their respected elements. Like I think Dendro is one of them, where or Cryo. There's like characters that are remaining supreme at the top because, and these are newer characters as well because their abilities are just super, I think, overpowered. I would say, whereas the older characters just can't keep up. And I think a prime example, I don't know where Jean's standing is, but I feel like she's just so mediocre. I think when the game first came out, I was like, man, Jean is super cool. I thought I would get her in the mission that she's in, but nope, the game doesn't work that way. You have to actually pull Jean. So I'm like, great, right? So, okay, then I'm trying to pull the new character with the motorcycle, and then I get Jean. So I'm like, wow. A whole year later, I'd say years later, and I get Jean now. So now it's like, what do I do? So my thing is that you have characters that have better skills than others, and because of that, because of that big divide between these characters, you're going to see this whole power creep argument where there are characters that can just completely destroy this game. I mean, you have a character that can just fly in the air with a motorcycle, right? And you have characters like Kaya that can use the ice walk thing where he can just freeze the water and then walk on ice and continue that method and make his way to Inazuma, right? Or the water area or whatever, right? You have characters like that are being outshined to characters like the newer character. I don't know what her name is, but I've seen clips where she can just freeze water with ease. Right, so you have situations like that, and I think that's the state of the game. I think Kai is still a great character, but the first thing that I think in my head is I want this newer character, and I think that's a big problem, right? Because I think it's just predatory. It's like, hey, we made this character super overpowered. You should get her. They put her everywhere. I mean, yeah, it's making you think like, you know, you should get her, and if you don't get her, you should probably keep spending. You should probably start spending your actual money irresponsibly and get this character. And then now you're just sitting there by yourself with no money because you wanted to spend on a virtual character. And yeah, that's my whole problem. Also, the design of the game. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with Genshin, but I think my problem is just the overall design of the game. The stamina meter, the lack of skip button. I think I already said that already, right? Yeah. It's just very repetitive in terms of its design, and it sucks, right? I think the game has a good idea, where it's like we want exploration, right? We want you to explore the world of Genshin Impact, but then my problem is the walking speed is complete trash. I have to actually pull a character called Wanderer just to be able to do anything in the world, right? I'm like, where are the cars? Because there's like this there's like this boat that allows you to get from place to place. I think that's cool, but none of this stuff, like, this is another thing too. I was speaking to a friend about this. Apparently, none of this stuff was around when he started the game. So now that it's in the game, he's like, what? He's like, what in the hell is where the hell has this been? So they just released the game with no Dendro, no Hydro, nothing. So we just have Wind and Geo. Where's Cryo, or where's the Lightning? Where's the Pyro? Because Pyro comes out. This, I guess Pyro already came out already, but that's like the whole problem. Is like they just released a game with none of the other kingdoms completed, and that's like his whole problem. It's like, and I was telling him, I was like, man, what'll happen when this game is completed? Like, when all the things are there, what are we gonna get, cars or something? Like, is this game gonna be an actual video game, or is it just gonna be another? Like, what's gonna happen to Genshin Impact when it's completed? And then what are they gonna do? And there's a lot of controversy stuff I want to talk about, maybe at some later date. But man, some really crazy stuff going on with this game. And I think my main issue is really just it's just the exploration. I think it's just like, it's so tedious, it's so like just unneeded. I want to be able to get around fast. I want to be able to explore landmark after landmark after landmark. I mean, Fortnite has cars, right? Like, it makes sense. It has cars either for attacking enemies or driving from place to place in fast speeds. And obviously you need gasoline, but that's better than this. How is Fortnite doing it, but not this game? But not this game. That's my problem. It's like you have the tools in front of you. I think Zelda did the machine car thing, ancient car thing, whatever, motorcycle thing. That was cool. My problem with this game is I can't do that here. I can't ride on anything. I'm just running, and then, oh, I ran out of stamina, right? The walk speed is complete trash. I have to pull the character just to get faster. And that's something that I saw online, and I love how the community is just so honest about it. They're like, oh, we just pulled this character, and like all our problems are answered. Like, if we want to get from place to place, we just get this character, and then we just blitz the game. So then I'm sitting here like, wow. So that's why you guys are just like spending loads of money, is just to break the game. And it makes sense now. It makes sense now. Like, and my thing is, maybe the game is fun, but it's just I think my thing is, it's quite clear what the issues are. It's the whole like character like stuff, where the characters are just the newer characters, and the banners, right? I think that's another thing I want to say. Man, I'm just going in and in, bro. But another thing that I wanted to talk about was the banners. I noticed how a lot of characters are being casted out. The older characters are being casted out because of the lack of banners that are coming back. Um, you have right now. You have 4 banners. You have the one with the newer character, the one with the ice newer character, and then the standard wish, and then the weapon for the new character or whatever. That's a big problem because people either already have the characters in the standard wish, or they don't want them at all because the standard wish. And so the problem is just the fact that there's no real way to confirm that, hey, I'm gonna get Wanderer, or hey, I'm gonna get these characters that will allow me to explore quicker. So then these guys are like, hey, maybe I don't want this character or something like that. They just feel as though their favorite character is casted out. And I've seen a lot of things where people just don't simply just don't own these characters, and so because of that, and because of the lack of reruns of these banners, they're stripped of the ability to just do some gameplay stuff, right? I'm stripped of the ability to glide across the map or something because I'm stripped of this gameplay opportunity because of just a banner not being there. And that's clearly unfair, right? It's like I can't glide across the map or run around quicker because it's not there. The character that gives me that isn't in this banner. And my thing is just that's clearly just unfair. It's not fair to strip players of what I think they deserve. That's not fun. And that's just anti-consumer. The problem that I notice nowadays is that games kind of give addictive gameplay less than actual like in-depth gameplay, one that you can kind of sit down and play for hours. A lot of RPGs have that kind of gameplay where there's like a combat system in place, with advantages and disadvantages or elemental factors. Not talking about Genshin Impact here, because that has its own set of issues. But in this case, I'm talking about an actual system that actually works for the game. Um, so yeah, usually it's just about I like this character, I like this game, I really like this gameplay. I'll spend money in the game. The only problem that I have nowadays is that every day, not every day, but it's like nowadays you can't. It's like nowadays you can't make a Gacha game without it being a live service. I mean, yeah, you can't make it without it being a live service. It's like what's gonna happen when Genshin Impact finishes. Like, you know what I mean? It's like what's gonna go down when these games finish, right? Because I personally, I see more of a future for Wuthering Waves in comparison to Genshin. There's an actual in-depth gameplay with Wuthering Waves. There's a story. I mean, there's so many ways to get into the story for Wuthering Waves in comparison to Genshin Impact, where it's kind of like you can't skip anything. You can't get to that thing without waiting or anything like that. It just takes too long. And it's kind of a slog to get through the story, personally. So I just like Wuthering Waves way more. And I think, personally, spending money in that game is no issue for me at all. And I think games like those are really an example because it's the gameplay, it's the story, it's the music, it's like the design of the game is what will have us. And I think an example would be like Marvel Rivals. I don't necessarily condone of spending money in live service games, um, but I understand the reason. In this case, it's been a long time since we've seen designs as like this, where we've seen such feminine designs and such masculine designs, and so it's nice and it's refreshing. I can understand the reason why people spend money in it because it's been a long time since we've seen such designs with such passion poured into it, and you can see the difference between a male and a female in comparison to the games of today, where these designs are kind of watered down and more for the modern audience, as they claim. So that's kind of the issue that I noticed. But yeah, it's just kind of weird, and it's for me personally, it's immersion breaking, and it kind of removes the fantasy aspect because, like, dude, I want to see designs like these. It's not about being any of these terms that they use for guys or anything like that. I just want to play a game with designs, and I want to be able to choose a hero that stands out to me, and I want to play as a character that stands out to me. And these games are examples of what I'm talking about. And it's kind of funny that games from the, I guess, east side of the world, correct me if I'm wrong, but they usually come out with such passion projects. It's been very shocking to me after playing Me Side for 5 hours, playing Wuthering Waves for almost 20 hours. It's kind of dawning on me the fact that these games have such interesting designs. They're not watered down in any way. It's just you can see the art within the storytelling and in the music structure. And I'm just like, dude, that's so cool. So yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. It's really about that. Another thing is, as well as, does the game care about your money? Does it care about what your money is going towards? Because I don't really see that with Genshin Impact, honestly. Now, to be honest, all of these are all corporate companies trying to get your money, but at the end of the day, it's your decision to make, right? But at the same time, my perspective is they're corporate companies, but they kind of have to understand what the audience wants and what the audience needs. At the same time, it's what would the audience prefer, right? So a $20 skin is not an issue as long as the value is there. That's like my whole thing. There needs to be different forms of ways to get into the game. They cannot be like, for example, a $5 pack, right, to get in for like an entryway into the game, right, or whatever. And then a $10 pack, and then a 20, and then a 30, and then a 40, and then a 50, and then all the way up to like 100. It's just too much. Let's have just a couple, right? And maybe 100 can be the max, but at that point you'll just be buying currency. So that's kind of my issue with these games, where it becomes the thing where they kind of just keep increasing these forms, these ways of getting into the game. Like, oh, you have you have the option to choose a $5 option or a $10 option. It's like, it's just too much, right? What is a definitive way to get into the game instead of creating cheap alternatives to have me keep spending? It's just weird, right? It's just really weird, and it's predatory. So from my perspective, it's just like, just make good decisions as a consumer, because it's what you've got to do, and play a game that really cares about you. They don't really, because of corporate companies, but at the same time, it's like you can tell by the passion and the updates, right? It's like they listen to your feedback, because without you playing the game, where would the game be? That's kind of my thing, because like, we can say corporate companies, but they kind of need you to play the game. So then it's like, yeah, it's one of those situations. But yeah, I think overall, yeah, it's just the gameplay, like the core of the game is the gameplay, the design, the music, and everything. My issue with Genshin is like, honestly, when I look at these updates, why does it take so long just to get a feature? Wuthering Waves is like in its like initial cycle, right? And it's already doing far more than Genshin. It's like, it's crazy to me. And I mean, the first patch, well, not the first patch, but the first major update, I think a couple weeks, I don't know what number it is, but a couple weeks ago, I mean, the entire internet was celebrating it. That's insane. That's actually insane. It's like, man, and I completely agree with their decision. I mean, it's genius. So I'm sitting here just like, I don't understand how players of Genshin Impact can just sit here and wait for this. It's ridiculous. Just sit here and pray and hope to God that somehow these guys listen and offer quality of life. It boggles my mind completely. I just don't understand. Honestly, I'm just sitting here just like, how do you guys do that? Just sit there. They create surveys. I mean, the recent one was absolutely ridiculous. But they made a survey. They've made various surveys before, and I mean, where has that gone? So it's one of those things where it's quite frankly ridiculous. And so if the game, and that's the thing I was saying, when the game is complete and the entire story is finished or whatever, will the game be pulled from shelves or what? I mean, not pulled from shelves because there's no physical copy, I think. But what will happen to the game? Will it disappear? Will it stay on the, like, what is? Because I don't know how this works. Because I'm like, isn't this a video game, or is this just a live service video game where it's just like, oh, when we complete the game, we just remove the game from shelves or whatever, end of service? Is that how this works? Because I don't know. Because I think Overwatch was the first one that it was live service, but I mean, hold on, what am I talking about? You need internet to play. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the same type of game. Well, I personally would just play only one live service game, but yeah, this is kind of weird now, because basically all these games are live service games and they kind of do the same thing. So you'll need internet to play. It's not an actual game, so maybe I'm just different here. I think I prefer just playing a video game. These are video games, but it's like there's like a live service aspect. And it's like, man, it's like, my personal issue is just that live service aspect. It's like, man, what would it be like if the game was fully complete? You could play it offline anywhere you want, but this isn't that kind of game, so that's a shame. So maybe when these games go out of service or whatever, maybe they'll just be gone forever, which is very unfortunate because it's kind of the same thing that happens every time. Yeah, live service games.